Thank you. Great to see so many of you here. We actually have a brief presentation about ourselves baked into the presentation. I've also uploaded the presentation on our schedule, so there was a slight change, but the gist of it is there, so you can download it for your offline viewing pleasure. And the purpose of this talk, we can jump to the next slide, the tribulations part. It was basically, the idea was that we would speak with City Network, who's our client since a long time ago, and us as a monitoring vendor, and try to highlight some of the difficulties of the non-politically correct version of running OpenStack in production environments, and the troubles and the problems that arise from there. And Daniel, who's VP of Operations at City Network, was so nice that he wasn't able to refuse my request, and that's why we ended up here. There's an agenda. We're going to talk about our respective companies, why we felt this talk is important. Daniel is also going to share, I think, some very interesting lessons about key lessons learned from operating OpenStack in production. Reality is always different from what you read on the websites. I'm going to talk about compliance, noisy neighbors, and also on the next part of the agenda, we're going to talk a bit about the MONASCA project, which we as a company at OP5 are involved in the OpenStack community, and how we see that able to solve some of the problems that we're going to talk about here right now. Yep.
So, can I hear myself over there? Yeah, I can. Perfect. So my name is Daniel Öhberg, and as Yavor said, I'm from City Network. The presentation is coming later, but yeah, I'm always saying yes to everything, so that's why I'm standing here today with Yavor. I'm not gonna be able to tell you all the sweet spots of running an OpenStack cloud in production, but I will tell you some essential parts of it, and more focusing, sliding into the MONASCA part. Just some, I'm not gonna be standing here and trying to sell City Network. We're one of the organizers of OpenStack Days Nordic, and we've been around for some time, founded in 2002. The first public cloud offerings was introduced in 2009. It was not OpenStack. First time our team started mess with OpenStack was 2013, and the public cloud offerings in 2014 based on Havana. So we've been around for some time. We're trying to be a contributing force to the OpenStack community. I mean, we're a fairly small company, so it's always hard to measure with IBM or Huawei or whatever we're talking about. But we are a gold member of the foundation. Our CEO is on the board of directors as of a few weeks back. And this is kind of our global footprint today. And you can see a lot of dots here. The big blue ones are public clouds based on OpenStack, and the minor ones are some kind of points of presence. We have 8 public clouds running on OpenStack. We have a few private clouds. And we also, which is our focus, is the regulatory challenge business. So we have 5 high security DC cages where we also offer compliant cloud, community cloud as we call it. I mentioned the regulatory side being one of our focus areas, and this is just to illustrate some of them. We have a number of ISO certifications. We have a lot of both industry-specific frameworks that we try to adopt to and follow. And this is to help cater for those industries or companies that do follow these rules and regulations. Not so much about me. I have a background in the military. I've been an entrepreneur. I've been mainly into IT operations, and now I'm trying to manage the technical department at City, consisting of operations, engineering, and DevOps.
Yeah, and a bit about our company, OP5. We're also a Swedish company, founded in 2004. It's an open source company at heart. We initially based our current product called Monitor around Nagios, and we've heavily contributed to the Nagios development, where we've written something like 80–90% of the code in Nagios 4. Currently shipping Monitor version 7.3.x. We specialized in unified IT monitoring solutions for data centers and large distributed carriers. We have offices in Stockholm, Gothenburg, Munich, Tulsa. Yeah. On this slide, one of the important things, we have plus 90% renewal rates, so our customers are pretty happy with what we offer. And also, one of the angles that I'd like to sort of bring into this, especially when we talk a bit later on about the OpenStack project MONASCA, is that our product is really battle hardened. I mean, you see, I don't want to go into the numbers per se, but we have some huge installations in Comcast and with Apple, with Ericsson. So it's really, really battle hardened. About me, I'm an engineer by heart. Entrepreneur. I've been CEO of small companies, I've been CEO of big companies, but I always have at least one foot in technology. Yep.
So enough of the sales pitch, and actually to what you're really here for. So we outlined a few different areas we felt was important here, and it's kind of just to give the essence of operating a multi-cloud environment based on OpenStack. But as I said initially, it's not going to be all the secrets, trade secrets and everything, but just the core essence of those. And also, as we have been partner of OP5 for quite some time, and we have battled a lot of the challenges together in certain ways.
I think that one of the things which we want to bring in this talk is we've had a lot of technical talks yesterday and some even today, but one part which I think is not very obvious is that the OpenStack, when it now is maturing and becoming more business critical, we see that regulatory challenges will be a huge driving force forward. Not only in the sense that regulations, it's boring, it's difficult to comply, it's costly, but I think that things like GDPR, I know that Kim from City Network is going to give a talk specifically about this later on. Please go listen to that as well. That, I think, will be the major OpenStack adoption driver for the next 5 to 10 years, at least in Europe. And we want to highlight the gaps in the current solutions, and not just in our products, but the current solutions out in the market, and perhaps offer a way out in the future.
Yeah, I kind of feel after Monty's keynote today, I mean, he was so energetic, so I almost feel like I have a hangover or something. I'm not sure if I share that feeling with you guys, but yeah, he's very enthusiastic watching on stage. So I've been with City as January last year, so the team has been fighting OpenStack or evolving with OpenStack for quite some time. And I meant just to round up maybe the key lessons learned throughout those years. And automation is everything to us, because operating a multiple of installations, it's very troublesome if you don't have the automation in place. We can talk about CI, we can talk about CD, so continuous integration or continuous delivery for those who are unaware of the expressions, but we try to adopt to those by we have 2 major upgrades every year, but we want to do the more continuous delivery, I should say. Actually, we do some continuous integration as well, where we could even go into the code base to make changes when the community may not be fast enough in various ways. We have always tried to avoid the vendor lock-in to the best of our abilities, and it should always try to remain agnostic, which of course is one of the driving factors here. One of our biggest challenges also from the lessons learned is that the networking side of OpenStack is by far the biggest challenge in a lot of ways. And listening to Søren's presentation earlier today, and I got the question about our numbers in comparison to Søren's numbers, and I said like slightly less. So I saw the migration towards Neutron from Nova Networking, and to gain those extra perks network-wise, it's really nice, but also where you start to introduce a lot of the complexity. We run Neutron and Open vSwitch as it stands today, so we haven't implemented any third-party overlay or anything else, but we try to stay as close as possible to vanilla as we can. And speaking about OP5 and also what we're going to slide into later on today, is that we are being fed by a huge amount of metrics. We talked about Centimeter earlier today, but there is a lot of data coming out in various shapes and form, and I mean, you can have enough storage to store all of that, but processing and understanding it, and especially for our technicians to get a comprehensive overview of what is actually wrong is one of our big challenges today, and something we're going to slide into later. And also not only offering public cloud or offering the cloud adaptation, it's a maturity going out there, speaking to customers or potential customers, and slightly what Monty was on about the cloud native and everything, but scaling out to multiple vendors, but also changing the organization behind it, because that's the biggest challenge today. I mean, DevOps has been a buzzword for quite some time, but I hear like 10 various definitions of about DevOps. And so even if you have the offering in place, it's changing the organization behind it to get the full power of the cloud is something we struggle with.
Not just you. DevOps is, a lot of people talk about it, very few actually implement it, unfortunately. Yeah, compliance.
Yeah, so sliding into compliance. You can read the meaning as it says here, but it means so many things, and I think it means it's had different meanings to all of us, and we have tried to break it down to a few different areas here where you can see where you have the regulatory side in terms of geographical problems. We have a lot about GDPR and where you're allowed to store your data today. A lot of the companies may even have policies about that, and so both the physical location and as well as privacy and other aspects. But not only that, you also have a few different types of industries that have their set of requirements. So you also need to take those into account, whether it's healthcare, government, insurance is listed here. And as you can see, there are a lot more aspects to this, and this is kind of what we want to be sliding into now, which is, to us, I mean, compliance means a lot because it's one of our biggest unique selling points, to be perfectly honest, and also the biggest challenges most companies have lying ahead of them. So trying to understand how we can live with compliance means, I was talking about metrics before. I mean, we can get a lot of monitoring metrics telling us how our system is behaving and the status and health of that. But ensuring compliance means that we will have to find ways of interpreting the data we get. So in a way, the metrics, but in a soft way. So logs, perhaps in particular here. But not only being, it's always reactive, but sometimes you will have to be almost proactive but reactive, meaning that if you have an intrusion triggered by an event or a log, you may have a time frame to be able to react upon that, especially if you have a security aspect to that. So finding ways of processing this and getting proper monitoring of your compliance is something that is a challenge, but also something that we need to face and solve within very near future. And that leads us to, we have OP5 today, we have a number of systems, we have a lot of metrics as I was talking about, and not only having those, but also the logs and events, we need to find ways of consolidating them, both that, but finding ways of presenting this to the operator, making it like AI-based in a way, because you want to make it easier for people to understand what is happening and have a faster response based on that.
One of the things I didn't understand before talking to you guys was that in many of the cases, when it comes to your end customers, you have SLAs in which you're stipulated a certain response time in which you have to address an incident or a breach. And so finding the root cause of the problem is actually directly related to a revenue loss, potential revenue loss for you.
Yeah, dealing with banks or finance institutes or insurance companies, yeah, it costs you an arm and a leg if you do something wrong. So, yeah, it's tight SLAs. You're perfectly right about that.
Yeah. So that brings us to the whole issue of how you can respond quickly to all those streaming information flowing at you. So this is the compliance, then we go to, yeah, this is interesting.
Yeah, I mean, going back to lessons learned, I saved one part, and one of the big challenges is the noisy neighbor. And I've tried to find both illustration of what it is and a written meaning for those who don't keep looking at the girl up there. And the funny thing is that during our testing together with OP5, they ran a lot of stress testing, and I'm not sure if you send 1.5 million metric something per second.
Yeah, we wanted to stress test the MONASCA project in our initial development work, and we obviously used cities' public infrastructures as a provider. So we stress tested that system to 1.4 million metrics per second. And then we had an issue.
Yeah, and also, so key lessons learned is you have to deal with noisy neighbor in terms of quality of service and other rate limiting factors. So, yeah, I want to thank Yavor and his team for pointing those out. Help us drive our own quality assurance here.
Happily, we are still on speaking terms, as you can see, after that incident. It was in the middle of the night, wasn't it? You were abroad as well, so. Yeah, we're all, for some reason, it's always when there is an OpenStack event taking place. So, yeah. We've been mentioning this MONASCA project. I want to spend some time on what that actually is. First of all, it's an open source project. It's an official OpenStack project. The name MONASCA stands for Monitoring and Logging as a Service at Scale, and it's designed to be fault tolerant. It's very highly scalable. We still haven't actually found a point where the linear curve starts to sort of drop off. It is scaling. It's multi-tenant, and it's performant for native metrics acquisition. There's the project link, and we also have a demo. But it's built around a set of very well-known open source projects. You have a big Kafka bus in the middle. The metrics database is right now currently based on Influx. We're looking into moving to perhaps Cassandra or something similar. The config database is actually MySQL. So, but the main point, which on the next slide, thank you, Daniel. What I want to illustrate, this is for me, the key takeaway architectural slide about MONASCA is that it's designed by architecture to performantly monitor, store, and access both metrics, events, and logs into one and the same system, reachable through OpenStack APIs. So it's not so much, it's not going to be so much of a product per se, it's going to be a bit more like a platform to seamlessly blend all those things and thus achieve this unified visibility in what's happening into your OpenStack services. As you can see, one of the things I want to point out in the middle, if you see on each of those different types of metrics, you have a transformer box in the middle. So after we succeed with this lofty aim of getting all of your performant data at scale in near real time into one and the same bus and into different storage suitable for logs and metrics and so forth, is that the architecture will scale. Ooh,
I want to point.
Thank you. It's those thresholding transformer engines where you have an intrinsic support to do machine learning, AI, complex computational, derived metrics off of the raw data that comes into your system. Yeah. And also, the way we as a company are thinking about MONASCA, typically what we learn from history is that we don't learn from history. So when it comes to monitoring systems, they're either sort of replaced, ripped out, or you have something else beside it plunked, and then you are looking into two or, God forbid, several different monitoring systems. But MONASCA as an architecture is designed so that it can monitor cloud or OpenStack environments initially. There is quite a lot of thought into the community of expanding that so it does other non-OpenStack clouds. But there's also this idea that if you have a legacy environment, if you have a Nagios-based system, or if you have a OP5 monitor and you're happy with it and the way it monitors your infrastructure, that's not something to be replaced, but you can actually, through an API, overlay MONASCA on top of your existing installation and thus have continuity in the team monitoring the application. Yeah. And so I've been talking a lot lately to Kim about the logging. This is the logging part of MONASCA. And once again, you see some familiar names. It's based Logstash. We're using Kibana, Elasticsearch. It's all, once again, it's all open source, but it's meant so that we can, regardless of whether you're having metrics, events, or logs, it should all be accessible through one and the same system. Yeah.
And
so
saying something about that, I mean, we heard a lot of the keynotes today talking about contributions, so at the same time, I would say thank you to OP5. I think you're top 5. Am I right?
Yeah,
top
we've
5 contributor to the MONASCA project. That's a driving factor, and it's important that we keep supporting that. And yeah, the summary to this is, as I told you, the lessons learned. That it's a lot of people look at OpenStack with some fear and the hassles of getting started, of course, is problematic, but so are most systems. And naturally, we have learned it the hard way many times, this is listed as an non-trivial task, but as with everything, you get the hang of it eventually, and it's also the maturity now is a lot better than earlier on. And in our case, it's of course the scaling, especially geographical scaling, also to meet the regulatory demands that we face from our clients.
And you know, one of the things that we are seeing as a vendor is that currently monitoring is siloed. You have systems that are focused on metrics, you have systems that are focused on events, you have systems that are focused on logs, and that all leaves somebody on the operator side scrambling for help because they can't have a unified view of what's happening. And by definition, I think that, you know, monitoring, as long as you don't have a single pane of glass, you won't be able to have quick mean time to resolution. And quick mean time to resolution, I think, is much more important than building systems which cannot fail, because yes, they will at some point in time. So how easy and how quick it is to monitor, fix, is much more important than having, you know, whatever 7 nines or 5 nines of reliability. Also, you mentioned that avoiding vendor lock-in is difficult. We see that as well, and that's why we are not embarking on our development work. I'm actually the one leading the next generation project, but we've decided to join hands with the MONASCA community within OpenStack so that we build and drive the community forward as opposed to bringing our own proprietary solution. I think open source has much more value to give to customers in this regard. And we have a demo, so come join us in the marketplace area where we can demo this, hopefully. That's it. Thank you, Daniel.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Yavor.
Okay, so we have time for some questions.
Yes.
Yep.
Noisy neighbors.
Noisy neighbors.
System went down during that testing. What was it that went down? Was it the MONASCA architecture or our infrastructure?
I can answer that question, but I have to kill you later. So, no, but it's one of the things you have to fight in public cloud environment. How to allow all clients to burst, but not affect the other clients. So, yeah, in essence, it was the abnormal traffic pattern in this case that caused consequences. But it also helped us improving our infrastructure by.
I think this is a good question because it's one of those things that shouldn't happen. But since OpenStack is so fast-moving as a project, it did happen. And the question is, you know, back to this: how do we ensure that when something like this happens, we have a quick mean time to resolution, as opposed to anything else?
We have a question back there first.
So just real quick, so I'm sure you guys know we're talking about Untitled in Stockholm. You were mentioning the whole AI and some of those aspects, right? Where you know, analyzing the logs and looking for differences and so forth. Is that the type of stuff you're talking about when it comes down to the AI that you're talking about?
That's a very good question. Thank you. And normally I am somewhat familiar with them. And so what I may say might be outdated, but previously, as far as I knew, you normally was basically a SaaS service. You would siphon off your data to them, they would do the analysis, and then they would flag for potential anomalies. I don't believe that this is the right way forward for a majority of our clients. We have a lot of we have you as a client. We have a lot of companies like you. We have a lot of telco operators. We have a lot of companies which are very hesitant to siphoning off their data to another administrative domain. And one of the beauties for me, at least, when we look into MONASCA, is that it's designed to seamlessly be on-prem off-prem, or anything in between. So in effect, that project would sit inside your administrative domain as a data center owner and operator and learn the data. So my limited knowledge, and another way to answer your question, my limited knowledge of AI and machine learning is that the secret sauce is not so much the algorithms per se, it's the access to the data, to fresh data that's not stale, that's you know, that you can seamlessly look into what's happening now versus, okay, last time I had a similar problem a year ago, what happened in the logs there? So having the performant access to your data in-house, then the AI or the machine learning algorithms, most of them are actually open source. Yeah. You had a question as well, sir?
Well, that was more or less the same thing. I didn't really understand how this helped with, I didn't see the unified view where it seemed like you, maybe just need another round of explaining how, because it seemed like you sent the logs to Elasticsearch and sent the metrics to a time series database. And how do you, as an operator, I mean, don't I have, you know, look with Kibana or something in Elasticsearch, and then Grafana maybe to show the time series? I didn't understand how it helped.
Yeah.
That unified view. But I guess it's because you can have the engines on the message bus to do processing there.
First of all, yeah, they're all connected in one same message bus, and as you probably are well aware, Kafka is designed for this kind of seamless asynchronous. But there's also the fact that it's all accessed or should be accessed through, you know, OpenStack REST API. So yeah. Yep.
There's one more question, I think, somewhere here. No more? Okay, so before we end, we have a small gift to thank you.
Thank you.
And we thank again.
Yeah.
Thank you.